In this video, we're going to take a look at how we can go about creating the Lightmap UVs while not combining all of the objects together. So we'll be able to keep all of our objects separate and have each texture group have its very own light map. And to do that, what we're first going to want to do is go ahead and open up the UV texture editor. And with the UV texture editor open, and again, if you don't have this panel option, you can right click in here and then just find the perspective UV texture editor, and it'll set whichever one of these boxes you set that to that. So you can just quickly have your perspective window along with your UV texture editor in its own panel, which is a lot easier to work with than the pop-up window. So let's go ahead and get started. I don't really need to see the perspective window for setting up these light maps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to panels. I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to go to panel. I'm going to select outliner. So now I have the outliner sitting here. I have a texture map group set up. One thing I want you to take note of, the way I set up my scene, is that each of these were their own texture groups. So this one here, this group of objects, all share the same diffuse map. As you can see, this is my map, and all of these objects share this map. So I've already separated all objects that share the same texture map into their own group just to make this an easier process. Now I'm going to go into group 4 because I went ahead and removed the light map UVs from all these so we can start from scratch. Now all we've got to do is just take these UVs that we've already created and we want to put them into a new UV set. Part of the problem with combining all the objects together and then doing an automatic mapping is you don't really have that perfection that you got when you spent all that time UV mapping. So this is kind of better because we're actually just copying the UVs that we've already worked so hard to create and perfect into a new UV set rather than just having to redo the entire UV set through an automatic mapping. I mean, it's just not really a good practice to go about it that way. In fact, I just want to take a moment to state that when I model and I create an object, I not only create my UV set for my textures, I immediately create the UV set for my light map. It's just kind of a modeling workflow that I have. I create the model, I UV map it, and then I create the light map UVs. So all of this is already done for me. If I go to any of my other maps, you'd see that they all already have light maps. I remove them from this group just to show you the process. So I'm going to go ahead and select the wall, and I'm going to come up to polygons. I'm going to say copy UVs to UV set. I'm going to drop this down and say copy into new UV set. I'm going to select this little box to open the options. I'm going to name it light map, just light map, and then go ahead and click apply and close. Now, because that was the last action that we did, all we have to do is select the next object in the list and hit G on the keyboard. Then select the next object, hit G, select the next object, hit G, and just keep doing this for every single object in this texture map. So now I've created a light map for all of the objects. I'm going to go ahead and select all of the objects. And I want to come up to our UV sets and drop down this really big list. And you want to make sure that each one is set to light map. And the easiest way to notice if one of these is not set to a light map is if two of the check marks are right next to each other. Like, see, there's a little check mark here. If you see two of these, one on top of the other, then there's probably a problem and one of your objects is not set to the light map UV. So just go through here and make sure each one is set to light map and the checkbox is next to light map. If it's not, you need to come through here and check that box so it is on the light map. These all have to be set to our light map for our next step. So now once all those are set to a light map, we're going to right click in here, we're going to select UV, we're going to drag over all the UVs, make sure you have everything selected, and we're going to up to polygons. We're going to drop this down, we're going to go to layout. We're going to select the options for layout to make sure we have the correct settings. Now the first thing you want to notice is in your layout objects, you want that to set to single or multiple objects because we have multiple objects and we don't want them to overlap. Second thing you want is your prescale set to world. At this point, because this particular map has nothing really small in it, I'm just going to go ahead and leave that at world. And in the next map that we do, I'm going to show you this process once more with another texture map, and I'll show you what to do about them really small objects, them really small UV shells, and how to handle those. So we're going to go ahead and scroll down, and you can see I have flip reversed set. For light map UVs, you cannot have the UV shell reversed. Everything has to be facing outward. You can't have anything flipped upside down. It just will not render correctly, especially in some game engines, they won't accept it. It'll just give you a black texture completely. So make sure that's flipped reverse. This will make sure everything's nice and blue and you ain't got no red shells that are backwards. Now in the layout settings, we want our shell layout set to region, scale mode set to uniform. That'll make sure everything scales uniformly. and your shell stacking set to shape. And I like to have the rotate for the light map set to free or to 90 degrees. So you can go ahead and set it to free for the purposes of these videos. Now in your shell spacing for Maya specifically, you can go as low as a 0.5 without risking bleeding on the percentage space, and that'll give you a lot more room for your objects to scale in size. But for a program like Unreal or Unity, and I'm just mentioning this, you're going to want to have that percentage space be quite a bit higher, something closer to a 2 or 3. And I'm just throwing that out there. Keep that in mind when you're doing a layout for a light map in the Unreal or Unity engines. You need a bit more space in between them or they will bleed into one another. So once that's taken care of, I'll go ahead and I will click apply, and you'll notice it'll come out real nice. Now this one came out really nice, but what I like to do is hit it 3 times because there's this third time's a charm thing where everything will scale correctly after at least the 3rd time. Now I can keep clicking it after that until it's something that I like. You know, it's real pretty. The first time was actually really nice looking. I probably should have left it, but this is good too. I'll go ahead and leave this right here, and I'll go ahead and close this. So now our light maps for this particular set are taken care of. So I'm going to select all of these objects. I'm going to come up here to the color window. I'm going to open up the batch make mineral ray. I'm going to go ahead and open up these options. Now these options are going to be a bit differently set up than what the professor did. We're going to change a few things. Okay, so first thing we want to do is the objects to bake are these selected. Okay, we're going to bake this to a texture, and we want to bake optimization set to multiple objects because we have multiple objects selected. Now we want to have bake shadows checked, and we want to have perspective. It doesn't really matter. And we can have the use bake set override check. But this right here, this is something that was different from what the professor did. We are actually going to check the keep original shading network box. Okay, we're going to check this because we don't want to create a new material when we do our bake. We want to go ahead and just leave the materials alone, and we'll add the light map through a file node. So let's go ahead and come down in the texture bake set override. We're only doing light. The normal direction is the surface front, and this is my 4th map group, so I definitely want to change the prefix. Now this is very important. For every light map you do, you want the prefix to have a unique name. So if I'm doing a light map for this texture group, which is my 4th light map, or I switch it and then my next one I'll do map group 5, I'll want to switch this to light map 5, press enter, and I have to make sure, see how the cursor's blinking there? Make sure that cursor is not there. So I'm going to switch this to 4 because this is map group 4. And I'll press enter. If you leave that in there, it will overwrite your previous map. So make sure you press enter so that little blinking cursor is not there. Very important. The X and Y resolutions, we'll go ahead and set those to 512 with a file format of JPEG. The number of samples is 1. We can bake to 1 map. This is very important because we have multiple objects selected. We don't want to create multiple light maps. We want them all to bake to a single map. So make sure that box is checked. You definitely want to bake the alpha so that way the light maps do respect any surface transparencies that we have on any of our objects. And everything else is pretty much standard. You can leave the rest, 1, 0, and EV 0 to 1. So once you have all of this set up just like I do here, I have it set to light map 4. This is the name that it's going to save out as. I'm going to go ahead and just click convert. Okay, it's going to think for a second, and then if you open up your scene file and you go to your render data mineral ray light map, you should see light map number 4, your JPEG image right there, and this is my light map. Okay, now in order to make this work, of course, we're going to have to go and set it up inside the hierarchy. So let's go ahead and take care of that real fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just minimize that. I'm going to go into the hypershade. So this time I'm actually going to go ahead and open up the pop-up outliner. So I'll go ahead and open this up. And I can see that this was map group number 4. So my map 4 material is right here. That's how my naming convention works, is map 4 mat. So I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to select the input and output connections. And this part's pretty straightforward, but we also have to add the file because we changed a setting inside of our bake options. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we're going to do that. First, let's go ahead and drag these 2 out. So I'm going to select these 2, drag them out, give me some room in between. I'll grab this middle connection, just hit delete on the keyboard, and you can see the stuff in the background has already lost its connection. Then I'm going to go into textures because we have to add our light map files. So it's going to come up here to the 2D textures and select file. That's going to give us file 17. Now all we have to do is come over here in our attribute editor, select this image name. I'm going to go to render data, mineral ray, light map. I'm going to select the light map 4 that we just created, select open. Now that we have a file for it, I'm also going to go ahead and give this a name. I'm going to call this lightmap_4. So now I have a texture and I know exactly which one it is. So now this is in here already, so I can just go ahead and take advantage of it because I've already just added it in here. Don't worry about this thing here. And all we need now is to do the layered texture. So I'll come in here and I will select other textures, layered texture, drag this in right here. All right, so now I'm going to select the map for material. I will middle mouse click the layered texture, drag it onto color. Then I will select the layered texture and I will drag over the light map with the middle mouse button. Release, click the X on that green one. Go ahead and drop down this blend mode and select illuminate. And then also do the same thing with this file 5. I'm just going to drag this over and drop it on here. This is the actual diffuse texture. So now they're both in here. This one's set to illuminate. This one's set to blend over. And we're good to go. This is all set up. Now there is one last step that we have to take. We have to open up our windows, drop down, go to relationship editors, go down to the UV linking and open up the texture centric window. This is pretty much the last process that you have to take care of. So I'm going to open up that map 4. I'm going to select the top one. Just select the light map 4 and set it to light map. And then just do this to each of them. Light map 4, light map. Wall 1, light map 4, light map. Wall 2, light map 4, light map. And I'm just doing this all the way down the list. Just selecting that light map 4, then light map. And that's all you have to do. And this is actually the last step that you have to do to make this work. Because you see the file 5 will automatically be set to map 1, but the light map, you just have to set that to map 4. So I'm going to go ahead and do all these. And there you have it. Now if I minimize this, go ahead and minimize this, I can go ahead and open up the perspective window and you can see there's my light map already taking effect. You can even see it, especially with these shadows. See the shadows on the wall? This is with shading, lighting, use flat lighting. So there is no lighting in this scene. The default lighting is turned off. So there you go. That's the entire process pretty much in a nutshell. Now I'm going to go through this entire process one more time with another map, so I will see you in the next video.